Hello, and welcome to Aging Out Loud, the official podcast of New York City Aging. I'm your host, Anne Cortes-Vazquez, Commissioner of the New York City Department for the Aging. This is where we talk about the real experiences of growing older in New York City without the stereotypes, without the limits, and without whispering the word aging. Today, my guest is someone that I deeply admire, not only for her leadership in public service, but because of the care and compassion that she brings to everything she does. And that is none other than my DM forever, Anne Williams-Isom. She's a distinguished social impact leader, and she's also a caregiver. As a caregiver myself, I know how complex and emotional it can be. Today, Anne and I are going to talk not only about policy or programs, but about the real lived experience of caregiving in New York City. Anne, welcome to Aging Out Loud.
Hello, Commissioner. Thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so great. So, as I said earlier, you and I share something personal. We both care for our mothers. When did you realize that your mother needed care, or when you switched the role that you became the caregiver?
Well, I think you're assuming that we switched roles, because I think there's always space and there's still space for her to teach me so much. And I feel like our relationship is deepening, even as she just has turned 95 this past Monday. And I said to someone, that I recently became a grandmother. And I joked to somebody and said, and now my mom is teaching me how to be a grandmother and talking about what that's like to have a daughter, have a baby. And so I think to you, I've learned this from you, Commissioner, is that at each stage of our life, the wisdom and the knowledge that she has changes and is able to kind of deepen our relationship and our experience together. I think that obviously at 95, there are physical things that are different right now. And I think that after COVID, when I do feel like she slowed down a little bit, or where I found myself getting more worried about whether, she's running up and down the stairs, and I found myself getting nervous whether she's going to fall, who comes into the house that might have germs. All of these things that I never really worried about before, I started to worry about more during COVID. And something in me became more of a protective lioness, I will say, towards her. And I think those roles started to change a little bit in terms of when I leave the house, she'll say to me, "What time are you coming back?" Or what are you doing today? And back when we were little, I would be like, "Mommy, what time are you going to be home from dinner?" Or "Where are you going to be?" So I think the role of she relies on me for her stability and consistency, where I've spent, 60 years relying on her stability and consistency. I think those roles have changed a little bit.
Yeah, but she's still a very active grandmother and now a great grandmother.
I think that she's active in the sense of she remembers everybody's birthday. She, is... Because she lives with us, I don't know if I said that, she has lived with me and my husband from day one. So she literally has helped us rear our children. So she's in the mix of it. But Lorraine, she's slowing down a little bit. So I think her mind is probably more active than her body, and trying to even figure out what that transition looks like and how to get her to think about that and what more she should be doing or not doing if she doesn't want to be. I think we've talked a little bit. And that's kind of the season, I've been calling it, that we're in right now. We're in this season. We're at 95. If she wants to slow down, I think it's okay for her to slow down, and whatever that means, right?
Yeah. And my experience is you're being a lot more accepting about it than I think I am. And I keep looking at myself, okay, Lorraine, your daughter, but you're also commissioner. So take heed of some of the stuff that you've learned. But it has been, my mother is such a firebrand, like your mother, and very, very much involved. She's an accountant, and now she finds it harder to reconcile numbers. And it just doesn't compute for me. But I always encourage us, hey, do whatever you want. You don't have to do that anymore. But it's a different role. I am becoming, I've always been the lioness towards her because I've always been protective of her.
And I definitely, other friends of mine who have parents who are aging, are going through very different experiences because I think some of their parents are pushing back and there's tension. I'm the only girl and the youngest. And like I said, my mother has really, I've spent less, I spent most of my time living with my mother than not living with her. Because even when I went to college, I went to Fordham so that I could commute because I didn't want to separate from her. And like as soon as Phil and I got married, she moved in with us. So I can't really think of an extended period of time. Probably not healthy, but it is what it is. So we're probably both obsessed with each other. So I think she listens to me and she trusts me. So she doesn't really push back if I say, if the doorbell rings and it's the FedEx guy, you don't need to run down the stairs to get that because I don't want anything to happen to you. We'll find another way to get that package or, right, those kind of things. And I think she kind of appreciates or accepts that I'm looking out for her. Right. Yeah.
The trust part is amazing, how they totally trust you and your decisions. And, she will even ask, people will say something. She goes, I have to ask Lorraine.
But Lorraine, think about that. How in our lives, we probably can't even count the amount of decisions where they were there making those decisions and caring for us. So I don't know, it feels like a privilege and an honor to be able to serve her in this way and honestly to prepare her for whatever transitions are to come and the joys of this period, but the losses of this period too, right?
It's why it's never surprising to us at NYC Aging, when people don't identify as a caregiver, because you're not. You're a mother. You're a sister. You're an aunt. You're a godchild. And you've always felt that you had a responsibility to this person who's taken care of you all these years.
I think that's probably also, and you tell me if you think this is true, cultural, right? My family is from Trinidad and Tobago. Your family's from Puerto Rico. And so it was always this given that this is what was part of our responsibility.
It's interesting how that's affected policy at NYC Aging, right? Because, when these programs were first started, it was primarily white, middle income or working or white ethnic populations. And so they were designed around that. They were not designed for this influx of multicultural older adults that we have now. I mean, we have, the statistics, the 75% increase in the Black community, 100% increase in Latino, and 180 in Asian American. That changes our programs. And so that piece that you said about the cultural connection, there has to be dissonance in that.
To your point, how do we make sure that we're reconciling that and that they, as you always say, that New York City becomes the best place for them to age and that they have access to all that they want, whether that's the music, the food, the community, because we know that allows them to thrive.
Right. And they do better in community than they do in institutions. You spent decades advancing child welfare, education, and equity. How has that experience or any of that navigated your view of caregiving and your view of caregiving in New York City?
I think I've approached my work in all social services from this holistic point of view. And it's weird that we have to even say whole because, of course, we're all whole people. Like we will talk about the whole child or the whole this or whatever. And so for me, I think mind, body, spirit. And I know that that's how we as humans thrive. And we've got to pay attention to all of that for people to be thriving. So it's been interesting to me, and I wasn't really prepared for it. Like I'm learning more about what it means to have an older adult in my life. What are the things that she thinks about? What more should she be doing to keep her mind sharp? When she's watching the tennis matches and she can remember all of the names of the people. And I'm just like, what does that matter? I was like, oh, but that's helping her with her recall. She's, using her memory. When I think about her body, we went to her annual exam last week and, are we getting her eyes checked so that she can see the remote control when she wants to do her thing? And so when she's dialing to speak to my brothers and sometimes she's like, I can't, too dark in here. I can't see the numbers on the telephone. Her back has been hurting her recently and she doesn't like to take medicine. So we're going to have somebody come to the house to do physical therapy with her. So, and then her spirit, which is, again, and this is a big thing for me, the sadness that I see in her sometimes, because I think she's understanding that there's less years in front of her than before, and wanting to really make sure that she's telling us everything that she wants to tell us, and that she's experiencing everything. And every morning when she wakes up, you can see the gratefulness. And like, I can hear in her voice at night, she's like, see you in the morning is the way. And I was like, since when has my mom become this Miss Badwater, wake up? And I'm like, okay, good night, Ma. I'll see you in the morning. But there's this kind of like, all right, see you in the morning. And so I think my experience, whether it's been as a child, I'm an attorney by training. I worked at the Harlem Children's Zone for years, so I saw the importance of community and connection and intergenerational work that we do at Fordham, teaching social work students, and certainly as becoming the deputy mayor. This is what they mean by a safe journey for people from the moment you open your eyes until you close your eyes. And what can we be doing more as policymakers, as clinicians, as practitioners, to make sure that people have everything that they need to be whole, I would say.
Yeah. When you talk about whole, and I think of your role, not only as a caregiver, but your role as a DM. And I'm going to go away from caregiving a little bit because I agree too. Okay. Because I think of how instrumental, and it goes to you thinking of things as whole, right? You were such an instrumental part of us getting this aging cabinet in New York. And, 15 years from now, we're going to see what a major impact that has been. My spirit of gratitude here. You were there at every one of those damn meetings.
Yeah.
And you were there. You weren't just sitting there. You were there. You were present. And you were such a catalyst. So, you had this deep understanding of how cities should work or how systems should work.
Like, I feel like my focus is always the individual. And so you all as individual leaders, how did you want to serve? And what did you want to bring to the table? And you all were such rock stars. It made no sense to keep you in silos. And you always wanted to be connected. So how do we bring you together? So first, I think that's the leader's role, is to unlock people's passion and then to let them go. So I would be in those rooms with you because I enjoyed all those conversations, and they filled me up when I had to go back into other situations. I wrote down, so the individual, and making sure that the individual is whole and getting what they need from an experience. Then you go to the system. And the only way that you can really change systems is by making sure that you have individuals who are creative and innovating, that are within the system and that are trying to move this big ship together. And then you get transformation. And I think that that's what all of us, not all, but what I saw in most of my commissioners, you guys were not just trying to dial it in. You were trying to transform systems so that you could serve the people that you loved in communities and in our families and in this city better. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that? And just being able to kind of be the conductor of that orchestra was an honor and a privilege. You and I, when we were coming in, you were talking about, do we as leaders know what we're good at? We're not good at everything.
No.
Right? And so what are you good at? And I definitely see systems and what's the possibility, right? Because as you just said, we see it in our lives. There's never a no. There's always a, how do I get this done? How can I get my mom that service? How can I, get my child into that school? And so we fight. And so we then become commissioners and deputy mayors, and we're still advocates. I remember telling Manny Castro that for a long time when he became the commissioner of Moya. He was like, I'm the commissioner and this, whatever. I was like, no, you have a heart of an advocate. You're now sitting in this seat, but you are an advocate.
Look at what you can do.
Look what you can do. And also because we tell ourselves we're one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're the commissioner. I was a deputy mayor. But like you said, we're moms, we're daughters, we're all of those things. You don't just leave that at the door, and it helps to inform your policies and your ability to see those gaps. I hate to keep on going back to race, but as people of color, we see things differently. That's why it matters that leaders are diverse. so that they can bring diverse perspectives to the table. Because guess what? A lot of those gaps were gaps that were in our communities, right?
Absolutely. And who's in that role matters. I remember, I just wrote about this recently, about the 9/11 fund. United Way, I was with the Federation, and I had to fight like hell to remind them there were more than just financial people in 9/11.
That's right.
There was a waiter, there was a mimeograph room guy, there was a retail person.
That's right.
There was a secretary, and your tables need to reflect that. And those are full families also.
And 100%. And you were probably one of the only people at that table who were mentioning something like that, right?
Right. And then I look back now and I see Grace Bonilla at United Way, and I say, like, well, it would have been nice, because then we could have been allies and the struggle would have been less. So
I think that's right.
So we still have challenges, right? I mean, I just went through getting my mother 24-hour care, and that challenges. What are some of the things in your lived experience that you can advise us, give us insight and information on what are the challenges you have faced?
Yeah, it just all feels very hard to figure the system out. And I sometimes wonder, if she didn't have me, I'm not sure how she would get any of this done. So a simple thing like getting her to her doctor's appointment 2 weeks ago and trying to figure out how do we, we ended up taking an Uber and we got her and we did this and da. But the asking of the questions, there were many things that they were asking that you could tell she was anxious about. Her blood pressure was up a little bit. They were like, are you taking your pills? And she's like, I think so. But like the intimidation a little bit that, that she was experiencing. So I think it is hard to make sure that your older adult has the information that they need, has advocates. Some of them don't need them, but need them when they need them. I was having a conversation with Ruth Messenger, one of my favorite older adults in New York City recently, and she was telling me that there is a program where you can have a younger person or a college student come and take your older adult in your life to a play. If they want to go to Lincoln Center, if they want to go, all those kind of things. So like to go on outings, and they'll stay with them and they'll take them. They're not like caregivers, but they'll do that. I was like, that sounds fabulous. Or someone who could take her for a walk sometimes, like simple things, right? If I'm running around doing a thing. I don't think I know where all of these services are and all of the different things that are available that I think would really improve her quality of life. Like my mom does not go to a center. She sees people in church, and those are her main, friends. I have a group of older adult women that sit with me in my pew at church who are all over and doing all kinds of stuff. But the information about how do they get those things, I think could probably be much better, Lorraine.
And it takes a village, but caregiving can be isolating at times. Where do you find your strength, the connections, whether in your community, your faith, that keeps you fueled?
So I want to talk about this question a little bit, because I wonder if it's isolating or if I'm a control freak. And so I'm not asking for help enough. Like I have 2 brothers that I really believe would step up if I asked them to step up. Or, other family members or grandchildren, right? My mom has 14 grandchildren and great-grandchildren or whatever. But I think there's something about me that I have to give up a little bit in order to say, can you support me? Because it's a little overwhelming, or because I have to run to take care of my granddaughter now, and really feeling like, I've got these, I guess it's the sandwich community. And so I'm SAG generation.
You're the
So I'm running over to spend some 4 hours with Noelle, and I'm like, does mom have her dinner? It's a lot, but I think that if I ask for help more, that would be the right thing to do. I
hope this program is making you think about that differently now.
But tell me how I should think about it differently.
Think about that we do this all the time. I mean, I know that I can rely on my sister, but then I say, well, she's going to do it right.
That's it.
So I need to trust that she cares enough to let it go, so that if it's not 100%, or my mother will tell her, okay, good, and now let's check for, that'll be fine. But there's a way that, particularly if we have those supports,
yes,
let them play a part.
I think that's right.
So I think that's the lesson
For both of us?
For both of us in this, about the challenge of this.
And I think that in the end, and I have been calling this a season, Lorraine, because I think I've said this to you, even with Noelle, the precious time to be with a 12-week-old. She's not always going to be this little, and Ayana's not always going to need me in the way she does. And my mom is not always going to be 95 to 100 or whatever. So I'm in this beautiful season. And so even though it may be heavy or intense or isolating, it's for a season. And how do I take the joy of that and appreciate it? Because when both of those things are done, I'm going to be mourning the difference of that next season that I'm going to be in. So I think it is about faith. You said it. You said you have a personality or a gratitude. And I think in the, I don't know, do we want to call it a struggle? It's a transition, right? And I can only hope that my kids are paying attention to how I'm doing it and will do it with as much love and compassion. I'm not always as patient as I want to be, but that Nanny is always in the center of us figuring out, okay, so where's Nanny and how are we taking care of her? So I think whether it's my faith or my perspective is like, it's a little difficult sometimes now. But when I'm not in this season, I know I'm going to miss this season that I'm in right now. The mental health for the person who's aging, and then also the mental health and the coaching for the person who's the caregiver. I feel like, Jennifer Jones-Austin and I, we're constantly on the phone with like, my mom, and like when we complain about stuff or whatever. And then we kind of, because of all of our history and what we know, are like, oh, this might be this that's happening for her. And this might be this that's happening for us. I think I'm in therapy and finding a place for my therapist and I to talk about what does this mean to be a caregiver, to anticipatory grief as I change, right? That I have to process all of that. I don't have to wait until my mom's 100, right? There's real science, and you've taught me this. We know geriatric psychology and all of these things, making that available to people so that we are, just like I would in any other thing that I'm dealing with, have a therapist who understands those issues, and me to have access to them is very important, so that it's just not me and Jennifer on the phone like girlfriends, not really knowing what we're doing.
Huge. That is a great another great thing. So now you told me what we need to do is to help the caregiver define it and help them define their roles and inform them of what's available. The other one is that we look at geriatric mental health only for the older adult. And we're not looking at geriatric mental health as this extension for families. So, there you go again. What do you think is the best neighborhood in New York to be an older adult?
So, I thought about this, and I, of course, am going to say Harlem. And I think the things that I think about when I think about best is it able to, you can walk and have transportation easily? Are there your, not amenities, but the things that you would need, right? Whether it's your church, you can friends, you can vote, go around the corner, you can vote, your grocery store that you like, your little fruit market.
The 5 things we say about politics.
Tell me.
5 points of places that people go to. That's where politicians should be, right? So it's your subway, it's your bank, it's your place of worship.
And I think all of those places and accessibility, which makes them feel good so that they can go out and, the park. So you want to sit in the park and you want to do whatever. So those things. And I think Harlem is very good at that.
So here goes.
Okay.
These are interesting times. How do you stay hopeful in this space that we're in now?
Okay. So I think I've been thinking a lot about this lately because I've been telling people I feel like I'm in a constant conversation with my past and my present and my future. So this little grandbaby has turned my world upside down, just thinking about, wow, what's this world that she's born into, and what will the world be like later on? So making sure that we hand her off stronger than what became before her, and knowing that there is love and hope and more goodness in the world than some of the craziness that's around us. I feel that so clearly, and I see it so clearly that I don't have to fake it. I just have to pour love into both of those, that sandwich generation, and take it in and say, yeah, we're going to get through this like we have gotten through other things before.
Yeah, and to just face the anxiety that every new announcement makes, just know. Justice prevails. Justice prevails. I live in that faith.
I think that's right. And I actually don't think you have to pick up the anxiety. How about that? You don't have to. You can, right? That's there. We are choosing to pick this up. And I think faith is about believing in something that you can't see either. So why not do the faith thing as opposed to picking up the anxiety? And so it doesn't mean that you're not seeing what's in front of you. It's that you understand that you're part of something bigger and longer than any one particular person or one particular time.
No matter where you go, there's always a lesson. And it's always deep. It's rooted in people and in love. Anne Williams-Isom, thank you again as a leader, as a mother, as a colleague. I'm going to get teary here. I'm not going to. Your honesty reminds us of that we're caregivers, but we have a caregiving role in this society.
That's right.
And that we never should lose sight of that.
That's right.
And that it's all about relationship. To our listeners, aging in New York isn't just about growing older, it's about growing bolder. You just heard it from our DM. Caregivers are at the center of this story, but caregivers are the center of what makes us work. You can find Aging Out Loud wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to learn more about NYC Aging, visit nyc.gov/aging. I'm your host, Lorraine Cortes-Vazquez, and I had the pleasure of being with my DM, Anne Williams-Isom. Keep aging out loud.
Yay.
Yay.